yet. Still saying starting soon.
Well, hopefully it kicks in shortly.
Yeah, hopefully.
Maybe there's a delay.
Yeah, we can only hope.
Weird.
Yeah, it is weird. If not, there'll be a replay.
Not, it'll be a replay.
Exactly.
Okay. Still nothing, huh?
Still nothing.
Oh, there's Dr. V.
Not that I'm seeing, anyways.
3 different attempts at logging in. That was nuts.
It should be this one, John. Let's just double check. I'll put it in the chat, the regular chat.
Okay.
Dr. V, can you grab that URL and make sure that we're streaming?
Yep.
No wasting a bit of time here, unfortunately.
That's
what you do.
Hey,
that's
gotta
technology.
Make sure it's working.
Well, that's interesting. I won't.
A
little cut and paste for today.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you've cut and pasted, I'll let you check it.
I have.
Because it's not letting me click it. Oh, let me click that one.
Let me do it. Well, that's
all
just silly.
Yep, we're on.
All right, so let's get going. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate this. All right, so welcome everybody, and if you happen to be able to watch us for some reason in the last minute and a half, and we just didn't know that we were streaming, apologize for the delay. So this is the part 2. It's the follow-up to the November 30th of last year event. In that event, we went through this process. It's a process that had taken about a year to dial in, not because it's like super complicated. It's just, I tried a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff didn't work. This is the process that really started kicking in for me. And that was sort of phase 1. Phase 2 was bringing in some folks to try it out, make sure that, the network growing, marketing kind of thing would work for them. And now this is the follow-up to that, where I asked my mailing list of these 3 various topics, which one did you want? I honestly thought the one about choosing the first option, by the way, Dr. V, if you remember that email, was some new thinking around choosing a niche.
Right.
And I forget what the second one was. I'm blanking on it. And the third one, almost as an afterthought, was, by the way, some people have emailed me after the last one in November, and they wanted specific details, like what tool did you use for this and what service do you use for that? I just sort of threw that in there, figuring everyone's going to want the one about the niches, right? No, not even close. Like 2 out of every 3 people voted for this topic.
I'm actually not surprised.
Show us step by step the tools, what you say to people, everything. And the other 2 options had to fit into the other third of the vote. So it wasn't even close. And so here we are back again to provide the details on how this all works and is put together.
And
so we're just going to jump right into it.
Tactics and tools are what fascinate people.
Yeah, exactly. So just a quick recap from where we are right now as of today, which is the 26th of January in 2023. Group 0 of all this. I've spent a long time, started my career as a software developer, so all numbering starts with 0, right? Group 0 was me figuring out what to do to find prospects for my business. And then group 1 was, I had 3 fractional executives who beta tested this for me, and they're all about to graduate in the next 4 to 6 weeks. And graduation in this process is you're doing the live event and then meeting with people who saw the live event and want to talk to you about yourself.
No cap and gown.
And then the next group, which has not formed yet but will form, will be somewhere between 1 and 8. I don't know how many people are going to be ever interested in this. 1 to 8 people who will go through as a group, because the first group didn't really have the group 1, so not group 0, was basically me dealing with 3 separate individuals. And the next group will be all of us as a group. I lost my voice for a second. Going through the process, weekly meetings for accountability, lessons learned. I tried this, it didn't work. Someone replied this back to me. I didn't know what to say. All that kind of stuff that you get from having a bunch of people all doing roughly the same thing, but for very different businesses. And so we can learn from each other as opposed to just, me.
It's your little mastermind.
So one last note before we move into this. Anytime you see a single asterisk, or on any task or bullet, it means I did that work for everyone in the group. And anytime you see 2 asterisks, it was collaborative. There's going to be most of these are 1 asterisk. It's mostly about me doing all the work for people. But honestly, I mean, that was the point of the whole thing. It's like, I've taken this, I've done it. Now I'll clone it for you and let's see how we go. Okay, so first part of the process is housekeeping, which is to say you're going to do a lot of outreach. The whole point of this thing is outreach. Some large number of people need to know that you exist and what you do. And so before you start, just like at a party and trying to get people to a live event, before you do that, you have things you need to organize and tidy up and stuff. You need to change almost certainly the about section on your LinkedIn page and how your name itself shows up. We'll go into that. You need some kind of gift for folks. In my case, for either when I did it for myself and especially when I was doing it for those 3 fractional executives, it was a booklet. It was a PDF booklet, a really nice one. I'm going to show you that, how they're made, examples of them, the whole thing. And then there's an outreach mechanism. I know we skipped over one. There's an outreach mechanism, and that's like how you're going to reach out to people on LinkedIn. There are 2 sort of main camps for how that's done. I'm going to go into both of them. And then finally, it doesn't have to be ready before you start reaching out to people, but you do need, in most cases, sort of a tidied up, cleaned up website homepage. And what you're aiming for is to have sort of the messaging and the theme and the problem you fix for people and stuff. The about section on your LinkedIn page, how your name shows up, the booklet itself, the website, they should all agree. There should be a theme that runs through all of them, so nobody has to keep sort of trying to understand what you're talking about or why you're talking to them. A quick note about all this stuff, and if you've ever seen any of my stuff before, you've probably seen this slide before. Almost everything, I guarantee you, that you ever see from any other business, and probably everything about you that you've put out anywhere, is all on the bottom layer. It's all informational. You're talking about yourself. This is who I am and what I do or what I sell and so on. For this kind of outreach, it's not about you anymore. It's about them. And so you have to move up a layer, and your messaging should be aspirational, which is to say, you, dear reader, dear prospect, dear lead, whatever you want to call them, you could be better. There's a negative present. If the present was a negative, there's no problem to solve. There's a negative present. There's a positive future. Give me money and I can shortcut you to the positive future, to be blunt about it, right? So no matter what we're talking about going forward, website, LinkedIn, messaging for outreach, anything at all, booklets, aspirational is where you want to be. You want to be talking to them about them and how they could be in a better future. All right. So first up, you need to improve your LinkedIn about section. Now, I did this for everybody in the previous group, or the current group, we could say, that's about to finish up. But you don't need me to do it. If you go to perfectlydescribed.com and scroll down on the right-hand side, you'll see in the part that's circled there that there's a 12-minute YouTube video that shows how I do this, how I've done it for hundreds of people, and even the questions in a booklet, a little worksheet that I use. It's the exact same questions that I use. And so you could do that for yourself, just by watching the video and then going through and answering the questions in it. That will give you all the pieces you need to put together an about section that's about the person reading it and not just you vomiting information about yourself. Once you've done your about section, it's time to go change how you appear on LinkedIn, your first name and your last name. And Dr. V, you and I talked about this in the prior seminar, right? Whatever we're calling these, where this ended up, I would consistently get about 20 to 25% of the people that I reached out to as a first level connection in order an invitation to connect. I'd average around 20 to 25%, sometimes as low as like 18 or so percent. But when I made this change, and just this change, it jumped to between 30 and 35%. Typically now it runs around 35%.
Which is remarkable.
Yeah, it's remarkable. And I mean, in a way, I was a little ticked off. It's like, well, that's such a stupid little thing to change. Like, why does it matter? But people make a decision on whether they're going to connect with someone they've never heard of. They make that decision almost instantly. A few of them will go and look at your profile and stuff. And that's why you want to make sure that your about section is like rewritten to be about a reader and not about you. But usually they'll just look at your name. And so there's no reason to not take advantage of the 2 text fields that are there. And so what happens is, and what we recommend now, and what I did for all the other fractional executives, is that the first name box contains your first and last name. The second box in parentheses serves a purpose. And if you see on the bottom, it's either going to show affinity or adjacency, and ideally evoke some kind of curiosity. So affinity means that you're part of the same group as the person you're trying to connect to. Adjacency means that you know a lot about that group, but you're not part of it. So affinity would be, hey, you have diabetes and I have diabetes. And affinity would be, you have diabetes and I'm an expert in diabetes, or a doctor who specializes in treating diabetes, right? They're not part of your tribe, but they're adjacent to it, and they would know a lot about it. Might be someone you want to listen to. And then any kind of curiosity you can evoke is like spot on, because nothing works as well as curiosity. We went over this, by the way. The reason I'm going a little fast on this point is because this is the part that was covered in the prior one. You're going to get a link to that one. You're going to get all kinds of links, actually. And at about half past the hour, you're going to get an email with links and stuff in it as well, without you or me having to do anything. So it's all coming, I promise. We're not going to
go back and review.
Nobody needs to make notes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the gift is, and it can be a landing page. We have questions. Can it be a blog post? That kind of stuff. I don't like either of those as the gift that we give to someone. So how this works is you reach out to someone. You've done your homework and you're ready to go. You reach out to them. They accepted the invitation. So about a third of them accept the invitation on LinkedIn. And then you send them like, hey, I wrote this recently. Thought it might be helpful. And it's if you send someone like a link to a blog post, I mean, I don't know about you, but for the most part, when someone sends me a link to a blog post, I assume it's not well written or not particularly interesting. Because I've read thousands of blog posts, and most of them are not particularly well read or interesting. And a landing page, it's almost impossible to have a landing page that doesn't seem like you're selling something, usually, right? Or it's just kind of an information dump. So the reason that those got shaken out and the PDF booklet sort of rose to the top for results is that it's a booklet where you're talking about how a problem that this person, with this job title in this industry, whatever, not an individual, but people, in that group, it's a problem that they have. And your booklet talks about, here's how an expert sees, right, or perceives that problem, and then how they tackle it. And that's it, right? That's like, it's as low key as that. It's not a infomercial about you. I think we say somewhere else it's not an infomercial about you, but I mean, it's not really about you. There's a section at the end where, sort of about the author, and that's you, but it's really, again, you're trying to serve them. We never ever pitch anyone, or rather I've never pitched anyone on LinkedIn. I've never seen
and this is also
anyway.
So this is also aspirational with the promise of a transformation. Implied promise.
No, you don't normally. I mostly do B2B.
Okay.
And LinkedIn is a B2B platform, so I don't normally promise transformational.
Right.
Transformational usually is reserved for fitness, diet, health, beauty, cosmetics, that kind of stuff. But aspirational is like you could be better or different, as opposed to like you could be new, which is the message for transformational. So you write a booklet. How long is it? Someone's going to ask me. So, by the way, you'll notice that my name isn't listed as the author for any of these. It's not a coincidence, right? These are ghost written for the people in the group, and then they're the ones that distribute it. I don't distribute it. If you happen to want to read any of them, they're in the email you're going to get at about half past the hour. You're going to have links that take you to the various people's websites, and that's how they are distributing them. So they're approximately 1,100 to 1,500 words long, which is, if you sort of the rule of thumb for a blog post is that it's about 500 words. So these are between 2 and 3 blog posts long, filled with lots of imagery, by the way, as well. And they're written about the reader for the reader. Also, I really like these. You can see that I've sort of progressed over time to like more and more visually striking covers. The one on the left was the first one, and the one on the right was done last week, I think.
Is this your Canva evolution?
No, I don't use Canva.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Nope. And if you've ever signed up for anything from me, you've probably gotten one of these. I'll tell you that if you're looking at rewriting your own about section, you could theoretically skip the whole perfectly described thing and just do the positioning workshop, which is in here. And you'll have a link shortly that gives you a series of emails with links to get all this stuff as well, by the way. But I mean, I continue to write these. The one I wrote last month was that, weird looking cat head guy write headlines. And the one that's coming out for February is this one right here, Why Prospects Ghost You and How to Stop It. Like, it never stops.
Are there 12 of these then? Every month a new one?
There will be, on average, at least either a workshop or a booklet or both.
And you recommend that to people who are...
Next month, I mean, ultimately the whole point of the thing is to get people to a live event.
Got it.
And we'll talk about why in a second. But I'm thinking that next month will be the first time that I actually, other than the positioning workshop one, is why prospects ghost you. I think the one in February will be a discussion of why prospects ghost you. And so I'll provide the booklet as part of my messaging campaign on LinkedIn for, God knows, hundreds and hundreds of thousand people. And then the invitation will be, hey, like, remember this booklet? I'm doing a whole thing and with a back and forth and Q&A about why prospects are ghosting you and what you can do about it.
So it's a deep dive then.
Yeah, more of a deep dive in that case.
Yeah.
In case you're like, one of the people kind of person who just can't wait, you can see there's a URL here, waycreative.com, FracPack23. All of this stuff all of these things I've been showing you are all in there. But again, the gift, you always want some sort of gift. So it goes, clean up your act, make sure that everything looks nice, right? And it has a good theme. Then you start reaching out to people on LinkedIn. We're going to talk about that in a second. And then you start giving away like content written for them, about them. And then ultimately you invite them to your event.
Good.
Oh, here's by the way, so people ask, and I'll get into how the booklets are made, I think in the next slide. But it doesn't matter who your web hosting company is, like Squarespace or Hostinger or Wix or whatever. It doesn't matter, right? So I did get some questions like, who do I use? I have a variety of them. And then when I work for clients, I work on all kinds of them. I don't happen to have anything on Squarespace or Wix right now, but clients do. And again, it doesn't really matter what company you use. What matters is that the messaging here, the brand, in this case, it's about branding, that it ties into and agrees with what the book said and what the LinkedIn About section said. Don't make people work to understand you. They're not going to pay you that much attention. Okay, and now we're going to get into the trickiest part and the reason we can't actually do this session live on LinkedIn like we've done the previous 100 out of 101 sessions. There are two ways to handle how you're going to reach out to people on LinkedIn. And remember, we're still in the housekeeping part, so we're almost done with the housekeeping part. We'll get into the details of various tools and stuff coming up very shortly. But I do want to talk about this. Now, for the invitation, you're going to decide whether you're going to do this manually or you're going to do it with some sort of tool. The outreach is so simple and straightforward. There's no reason you need a service to do it. But if you want to use a service, you should use a service. I mean, I can't tell you what to do. You should be able to find people that you would consider good prospects with a search on LinkedIn. I know that sounds like stupidly simple, but if you're looking for people who work in, fintech, you can find those folks on LinkedIn with a search term. If you want to find people who have, if you want people of a certain seniority or a certain title, you can find all those people with a search on LinkedIn. And I mean, seriously, it's just a search. You'd go to LinkedIn. If you can go to LinkedIn and in the upper left in the search box, just type in something and then it returns a result set and those people seem to be your kind of people, then that's all you need. You don't need any special magic. I don't have Sales Navigator. I don't need it. if you have a search where you want people who've been at a company for a certain number of years, or are in like certain like physical locations and have been there for a certain number of years, and kind of stuff, then you'll probably want Sales Navigator, because really the main reason to buy Sales Navigator is to have the complicated search capability as opposed to the simple search capability that regular LinkedIn has. But if you can get away with it with regular LinkedIn, just use regular LinkedIn. I will say this though, we mentioned this before, and I don't think it's on one of these slides, so I want to make a point. You should have a premium version of LinkedIn to do this. Now, it doesn't have to be $108 a month or whatever Sales Navigator costs, right? You can buy the absolute cheapest paid version of LinkedIn. And then this sort of increase in activity will be fine with LinkedIn. If you try to do and reach out to 100 plus people a week after week after week on a free LinkedIn account, LinkedIn might get like you might get noticed.
Or
And
you could go to LinkedIn jail.
You could be like Dr. V and end up in LinkedIn jail, which happened to him
Exactly.
last year, right?
Yeah.
And I said this on the November 30th one, but just in case, you're going to be sending out invitations to a lot of people, whether you do it manually or with some sort of tool. I've only been in LinkedIn jail twice since I joined LinkedIn, and I joined LinkedIn just about like they sent me an email once many years ago that said that I was like number 37,000 and something people who joined LinkedIn. I joined like 3 months after they launched publicly. Right now, there's almost 900 people there, 900 million people there.
Right.
But I'm number like 37,000 or something. But on all that time, in the 20 plus years that I've been on LinkedIn, I've only been in LinkedIn jail twice. I didn't use any tool. I was just, my activity was a bit, it spiked a bit on that day. And they put me in LinkedIn jail and made me sort of stop inviting people for a few days. That was it.
Yeah. I wasn't used a tool, but it was easy to resolve.
You allegedly used a tool.
I allegedly use a tool.
Allegedly, yes. No
Yes.
confessions. No
Yes.
true confessions here.
All right. And then I want to mention that for people who've really got not much presence on LinkedIn at all, I don't know, maybe Facebook is your place, and that's fine. A lot of this will work for you if you're on Facebook, but it's geared towards LinkedIn. I will say this, the number of mutual connections you have with someone plays sort of the second most important role after the name and parentheses curiosity thing, that tweak that we talked about a couple slides ago. And if for some reason you don't have a lot of connections on LinkedIn, the fastest way to do it is for the next 4 weeks or so, every weekday, invite about 20 recruiters. Not because you're looking for a new job or you want to be connected to a bunch of recruiters, but just do a search for talent acquisition, in quotes, and connect with 20 people per day. You can really only connect to about 100 people a week on LinkedIn, especially if you have a free account. And the whole reason for doing that is that recruiters, by definition, try to have the largest possible LinkedIn network they can have. It's not unusual for a recruiter to have 20,000, 30,000. I think that's the upper maximum right now is 30,000 connections. That's as big as your network can get. But it's not unusual for recruiters to have tens of thousands of people in their network. And if they become your first level connection, then that means all those 22,000 people are now added to your second level connections. And you can invite any second level connection to connect to you. So the fastest way to get as broad a network as you want, so you can send connection requests to the people you actually are interested in, is to connect to as many recruiters as you can.
It's like throwing gasoline on a fire.
Right. And then whether you're doing this manually, like you're actually like firing up LinkedIn Messenger, and or you're doing your search and you're trying to connect to, whatever, 20 people a day. Let's say it's 100 a week. You're sending out 100 connection requests a week, whether you're doing it manually or with a tool. You're actually going to have 2 campaigns running at all times. The first one is you're expanding your network basically every weekday, right? 20 a day. But you're also running a second one, which is a messaging campaign where you're either sending a reply to the people who've agreed to connect to you with your PDF, or if you're having an event, you're connecting to a whole bunch of people that were your first level connections, and you're inviting them to go to the event. Like about 100 people registered on LinkedIn to attend this event. Not one of them, by the way, I'm just going to talk about this for a second. Not one of them was invited via the built-in LinkedIn invite people to your event thing. That thing's terrible. I don't care if LinkedIn watches this. That thing's terrible. You can't sort people. You can't search by what industry they're in or their title or anything. It's just useless. So not one of the people who registered for this event came in that way. They all either had a personal message from me, or they're via LinkedIn, or they're on my mailing list, or someone else recommended it to them. That's it. You'll also find that if you try to use the LinkedIn event built-in invitation to like send out to 250 people or whatever, virtually none of those people are going to show up. I can't even tell you how many times I've accepted an invitation to an event and then completely forgot about it and it was just like a habit to say yes or something. So I don't use it at all. I'm not telling you you shouldn't use it. When we get to the live event part, I'll explain it, but I don't use it at all. Okay, so while I cannot officially recommend, because it's, I really like using LinkedIn. I would never want to, cause any heartburn there. Some people prefer to use tools. And if you do, I can tell you this, the tools are all basically the same and they all cost basically the same amount of money. So if you did a Google search for this term, the headline of this article, you will get a list of tools and probably recommendations or short reviews. And, you could just go ahead and try them out. If you wanted to go the manual route, you just type the same invitation. You do want to send a short note when you're sending someone an invitation instead of just like clicking the connect button. You'll have, when you click connect button, you'll have an option to say send note. You do want to send a note. You do not, absolutely not have to go look at someone's profile and say, hey, Bob, I saw that we went to the same school, or hey, Bob, I saw you went to University of Michigan. Go Blue. You don't need any of that personalization stuff, or at least not in my experience. You just have something similar and you paste it into every connection request and then click OK. That's it. This is actually taken from one of the people in my current group, right? He works in food and beverage. In food and beverage, everyone knows what F&B means. It means food and beverage. And so he just says, hi, looks like we have similar F&B connections. So hello, and a smiley face. That's it. Easy.
It's very non-threatening too. It's very...
Yeah. Now, I will say, do keep a list of everyone who says no thanks. There's no way to sort of unsubscribe people. But if someone says like no, if someone, you won't know if somebody says no thanks because they'd have to connect to you to reply back usually. But if at any point in all the stuff you're ever going to send anyone anything, if they say no thanks, make a note that they said no thanks so you don't send them anything else again. You have no way of knowing if anyone said that, if anyone told LinkedIn that what you sent them was spam. You'll never know until someday LinkedIn's algorithm will say you're done. So just like keep a note so that you don't keep sending stuff to people who've asked you to not send them anything. Flip side of that, there's no way for them to unsubscribe, right? For anything that you're doing other than to just unconnect from you. All right. So we're about to get into all the tools and stuff and the more nitty gritty part of the whole thing. So I just want to make sure we all level set here. This is about marketing usually yourself. Almost everyone that is involved in this is basically like in a tiny or even one person business like me. And they need some number of clients per year. And to do that, they need to tell some number of strangers who they are and what they sell. I'm not going to read the slide and you'll get it in a minute, but like, I don't know what the number of strangers is that you need to tell you exist and what you do. I don't know what my number is and how many people I will end up needing to talk to, but it's a lot. All right. So real quick, just in case you're brand new to me, and we're finally going to get to me. Oh, and I'll introduce John and Dr. V as well. I'm a fractional senior copywriter. I write the first thing that anyone ever, reads about you, a headline, a cold email, an ad, LinkedIn about sections, that kind of stuff. Right. So my specialty is in those first few seconds that a prospect decides that they might be interested and they pay attention to you. And it's my job to sort of get them interested and sort of re-earn their attention a few times until they're ready to have you sort of come into their world or have them come into your world. And like a lot of people, I do a lot of work with fractional executives, especially fractional CMOs and fractional COOs. And like all those people, I need to preserve a level of expert authority while I'm prospecting, which means I can't prospect in a way that's aggressive. I can't come off as cheesy. I can't come off as like, oh my God, like cringeworthy kind of stuff. I can't do any of that. And so the prospecting, has to be kind of dignified. I need to approach people in a way so that I'm not a pest, to put it, in another way, and to not talk about myself. And like I said earlier, if you look at the bottom bullet there, right, I don't know how many people I'm ultimately going to have to reach out to. Right? It's not hundreds. It's almost certainly somewhere in the thousands. But I'm not an everyday service. Like that's just, I'll give you an example here. So if you took 100 copywriters, and in case you don't know what a copywriter is someone who writes for businesses usually. They write ads, they write blog posts, they write whatever. If you took 100 copywriters at random and stuck them in a room, 91 of them write blog posts, social media posts. They write content, or what we call content marketing. And, there are a lot of businesses who need a lot of words written, and that's why they're the largest group by far. And then a little over a handful or so would write kind of premiums. They sort of, move up in price a bit. And they write white papers and use cases and special reports, anything where you might have to give over your name and email address in order to download what it is that they write, right? They write, it's sort of a premium version of a couple of blog posts put together. And then I'm the orange one. Maybe 1 out of 100, 2 out of 100 specialize in audience attention. Like our job is to get the initial little spark of interest from somebody so that then they'll go and read and download the stuff that the other folks have read. So whereas a blog copywriter might work for the same company every week, all year long, writing something, I'm not an everyday service. Most of the stuff I write, the engagements are pretty short, and that writing should last and serve that company for a very, very long time. Like that homepage I create for them, or whatever it is, that advertising, they should be able to run it for years with no changes. Now, when you have a service where you don't go back and work for the same clients over and over, you need to talk to a lot of prospects in order to find enough people at the right time, and also be known by enough people long enough so that they remember you when it's time to hire you. That's all I'm saying. So the process that I worked through and finally got working, and now we're about to graduate the first group, is, finding the people, inviting them, giving them something, and if you have to, give them something else. Invite to show how an expert like you solves the problem that they have, and then just repeat that forever. So what tools do we use? Free ones and cheap ones, if we can. Let's take a moment, actually. Dr. V, you want to introduce yourself, and then John, just so people know who's in the little window there?
Sure. I'm Dr. Christopher Vogelman. Have been a chiropractor for 33 years, but I also have a lot of experience in marketing and advertising since 1976, when I was one of the original Facebook users. We currently work in our new consulting business, which is called Crucial Business, where we specialize in creating predictable revenue for businesses that are in the $1 to $15 million range of annual revenue. It's all about the marketing systems and automation.
It's all about marketing systems. How about you, John?
Yeah. Dr. Vogelman obviously said most of mine. My name's John Panuchak. I have been a marketing consultant for many, many, many years and specialize in marketing strategy, but also have a specialty in video. And Dr. V and I also do a lot of work in short video. So,
right.
Yeah. TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels. That's one of our specialties in terms of tactics that we
for business
deploy for business. Yeah,
exactly.
All right. So what tools were used to create the various things, right? So the booklets you could create them in Canva, I guess you could, but I use Apple Keynote, which is just the free Apple version of PowerPoint. And I'll probably move to PowerPoint going forward. Just PowerPoint. Like, seriously. The only difference is where PowerPoint slides are landscape, right? They're 11 by 8.5. You can actually change those to be like this way, so they read like pages in a book. That's all there is. After that, you're just making slides like you'd make any other slide. So it's that simple. I was using Pages for a while, which is like kind of like Apple's version of Word, but a little more artsy. And I ended up giving up on it because I didn't like how it was handling all the formatting and pushing stuff onto different pages, and it's too much of a hassle. Whereas I've got everyone watching this has tons of experience in using PowerPoint or any kind of slide program.
Yeah, Keynote is my favorite. Yeah.
So just tilt it so it's portrait mode instead of landscape mode. If you don't know how to do it, just Google it. It's a 2-second operation. And then from there, you're just like making slides. And then just make your slides. For pictures, I have a subscription to Envato Elements. You don't have to. I think it costs me about $150 a year and includes like 20 million photos and a whole bunch of videos and all kinds of graphical art kind of templates and stuff. But honestly, you could get just as good pictures for free at Unsplash or Pexels. So I do like to have pictures in the, obviously on the covers and also throughout the document, but you can get them for free. For LinkedIn outreach, like I said, all the tools are basically the same, and you can literally just copy paste it manually and do 20 a day. It'll take you 5 minutes. Or hire a teenager to do it, if you don't even want to do that much. It's dead simple. There's nothing complicated about the outreach. For the actual video, it's LinkedIn Live and YouTube Live. This one's on YouTube only because LinkedIn Live has a Fight Club kind of rule that says you can't do LinkedIn Live video streams that talk about LinkedIn. And obviously we talk a lot about LinkedIn in these 2 sessions. So they're only on YouTube. It's inconceivable that YouTube would ever have a rule that says don't make videos for YouTube about how to use YouTube, but LinkedIn does. So we're stuck over here.
Yeah, YouTube is far less fearful.
Yes, so. Now, you don't have to use Zapier, but you should have MailChimp, or in my case, I use ActiveCampaign. Everyone knows what MailChimp is. It's sort of like where you keep your mailing list of people who you might want to send newsletters or any kind of marketing type of stuff to. Like I said, I like ActiveCampaign because I like it for a very cheap price. I think it costs, for the first 500 people that you have in a mailing list, it only costs like $9 a month or something.
Yep, it's exactly $9.
But includes all the automations and functionality that you don't get with the free version of MailChimp, which lets you have up to 2,500 people, but you actually have to like type every email and send it out manually. But you can't, like, if someone registers for this and gets flagged this way, then send them that email versus that email. And those things are easy to put together, but they really help lighten your workload, because if you're like me, you might be the only or main person doing the work. So not just the marketing and prospecting type stuff, but the actual work that makes money. And so anything you can automate away, better. The reason I use Zapier is because I can set it up, and I did set it up for not just myself, but for everyone in the group that I'm, supporting and doing the work for, so that every time someone registers for their LinkedIn event, it will automatically sort of vacuum that out and put that person into MailChimp, because you want to sort of get people off of LinkedIn and into your mailing list so that you can communicate with them directly and not worry about, A, they might not use LinkedIn every day or see a LinkedIn message every day. B, LinkedIn messaging is kind of buggy, right? Every like few months, it'll say I have hundreds of unread messages, and it's from people that I talked to years ago, and were read, but now it just randomly flags them as unread. It's bizarre.
Blast from the past.
And third, it's just better to have people on your own platform in MailChimp or ActiveCampaign or something, instead of relying on just having them as a contact in LinkedIn, because LinkedIn Messenger doesn't let you do a whole bunch of stuff. Doesn't let you talk to very many people at once. Can't send out stuff or an announcement or anything like that. It's kind of a mess. To be fair to LinkedIn, it's not designed to be that kind of communication tool, but it certainly isn't that kind of communication tool. And finally, by the way, Zapier is, I think Zapier is free for like 100 tasks a month, which for most people starting out would be more than enough for this. So you don't have to pay anything. And then MailChimp was free for the first 2,500 people, but it's worth the $9 a month to use ActiveCampaign, in my opinion. And then you'll need a service like Restream to stream live over LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or wherever else these are going. Then you really do need a third-party tool that will connect to all of those places at the same time and sort of live stream them to all of them or multicast them to all of them. Restream's also free. They have a free tier where I think you can have up to like 3 streams at a time, which for most people is 2 more than they'd ever need. They're probably only going to stream to YouTube or LinkedIn, but you can have 3 of them, Facebook if you want. The free tier on Restream puts the Restream logo on the screen. Since you don't see that on the screen right now, pretty good bet that you already know that I pay for Restream, and I pay $49 a month. For everyone in my group, they don't have to pay for Restream because they just use mine. In fact, I even like host their event if or will when they start doing them all in February and March. So they don't have to worry about that at all. But in case you wanted to, you're going to need some sort of tool like that.
Cool.
And this is an example of Zapier. So if you see on the bottom there, the LinkedIn Live to Active campaign, January 2023, and you see it says 95 tasks used, that means that 95 people registered for this event on the LinkedIn event, and it vacuumed out their names and put them into MailChimp for me. Active campaign for me. So then I could, I've got a little tiny automation on Active campaign. So when people like sign up for it, it sends them a little welcome. And then I can send them links like, about 10 minutes ago. Everyone should have gotten an email from me that included a bunch of links for stuff. Those are the same thing, right? It handles all that for me. You don't have to even have Zapier to get people who register for your LinkedIn event into your MailChimp or Active campaign. You're the organizer of the event, so you can go to the event itself and click on Manage. And one of the options is download registration info. You can do this every day, or you can do it at the end, after the event's over. And it'll just download a spreadsheet for you, and then you can manually import that up into whatever mailing system you use. So you don't even have to use Zapier for this process to work. Like I said, I like to have all of it automated so I don't have to spend any extra time on something. I'd rather set something up once and have it run forever than to have to keep doing manual stuff. But you don't have to if you don't want to, and this is free. I really wasn't kidding about how to make the books using PowerPoint or an equivalent of PowerPoint. Like you can see right there, this is the latest book that I wrote about why prospects ghost you, and it was all done in presentation software, and it works fantastic. And again, you already own it, or it's free, so you don't have to buy anything for that. Do remember when you write your little booklet to include a page about you so people know how to contact you and who you are and what you do. Obviously, otherwise it's an advertising piece where you didn't advertise the product, which is yourself, right? This does go at the very end, though. It's not about you and what you do or how you as an expert attack a problem or see a problem. You talk about the problem and how anyone who is really smart and amazing like you are would approach that problem. And then at the very end, you say, by the way, I'm one of the people who would do that. What you should see if you follow this give and serve kind of approach and never pitching, but only ever giving people invitations to events that talk about something they're interested in and PDFs and stuff of topics that they're facing, you should get responses like this, where people are quite nice, very nice. Over time, because the process never stops, you'll find that your network grows quite a lot. So right now this is from today. These graphics are from today. So fractional CMOs are a really big part of my business. I work for all kinds of different companies, but I mostly target fractional CMOs for a few different reasons. We'll get into that in a second. And so right now, I was connected to 0 fractional CMOs this time last year. And now it's crept up past 700 and it keeps going. And the number of fractional executives, period, that I'm connected to, LinkedIn won't even tell me. They just stop it at 1,000. This is because every day outreach is happening for those people. I know I just said it a second ago. I will say it again. Everyone here has received something like this. I bet you get something like this almost every day.
It worked.
But don't pitch to people on LinkedIn.
No.
Serve people. Don't pitch to them. Basically, in every case here, someone sent an inbound connection request. I told Dr. V when we did this on November 30th, by default, I accept all incoming connection requests,
Right.
except for the ones that are clearly spam, where some extra pretty 18-year-old girl happens to be a senior vice president at IBM or something. Like clearly a junk kind of thing. But other than those, I accept all inbound. But I do end up getting, like, as soon as I connect, I get some kind of garbage like this. And I'm sure these companies are great companies, and they probably have something very valuable, but they didn't give me anything. They just immediately wanted to, like, pitch what they sell.
Yeah, they proposed marriage on the first date. So
Now, as you might imagine, if you're reaching out to, over the course of a year or years, thousands of people on LinkedIn, you will occasionally have someone who sort of, like, has had enough of what you're sending them. They just don't see the value in it, or they're just busy and other stuff, or they just they think like, I don't think I should have accepted this connection request. That's fine. If you're polite and only ever try to help people, you get very polite things back. Dr. V, I think I had done the stats as of November 30th of 1,500 connections.
Yeah.
It made only 4 people ever said, "Hey, I reconsidered this. No thanks." And that's as bad as it got, is no thanks. People don't
that's
freak out,
extraordinary.
right?
Yeah.
But I got this last week and I loved it. I have hidden the person's name because I don't have permission to do this.
Yeah.
But apparently I had sent him, like, enough. So instead of saying, "Hey, I've had enough of this," he just sent me a link to an article or like a piece about No, I went ahead and read it. None of it was true for me. I don't pitch people.
Right.
I've never said, "Hey, you should hire me for Action." I do blah, 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 blah. Everything I'd ever sent was, here's how these kinds of problems that you would face are solved. Might be interested in it. But, obviously, I went ahead and made a note to never send anything to Kent again. But I thought he did it in a really classy way. But, I mean, just the fact that he sent me something was kind of great. But, I mean, this is it. I mean, you don't get, like, awful feedback or people chewing you out or anything, as long as you just keep serving people. And on November 30th, the screenshot I had taken, I had 6,768 total connections on LinkedIn. I mean, there are people with very big LinkedIn networks. Mine's not super big. But, just in that time between then and, I'm sorry, it should say 26 January, not 24, because I took this today. No, that's actually, I'm wrong. This is 24th of January. It was 7197. So just under 7,200. I was telling John before we went live, it's now currently at like 7,205 or 7,208 or something. Like, it never stops. That's about 400 people between the end of November and 2 months later, 7 weeks later. So it never stops. You just keep expanding until you can't expand anymore. Just take your time. It's not a fire hose. It's just like a few a day. Okay. So let's talk about and get into the live event stuff. So we did our housekeeping. We sent LinkedIn invitations. We gave something. Sometimes you don't give anything, but sometimes you try to give something. That's usually your booklet, right? You invite people to the event, and then you start dealing with the live event. Now, why a live event? And this was really what cracked it for me. Why the live event? And it's because of this. I'm in an expert service kind of business, right? I'm an individual contributor. I have, like, a very specific specialty of the very first thing anyone reads. And before they probably didn't know you existed. They probably weren't looking for you. And somehow I need to get their attention and help you develop an angle enough so that you're worth paying attention to for a few seconds, and then keep re-earning that attention enough so that they'll actually come into your world for a bit and spend more time with your content, looking at your blog or whatever it is you're going to do. But like many of the people on this call in expert service businesses, there's a vast difference to your prospect, a vast difference between you telling them what you do or the problem you solve and showing them how you solve the problem. Either solved past tense or will solve or would solve. Okay. And it's a vast difference. And it wasn't until I added in the live event stuff that things really, really kicked off. The first one I did that I had done, between the three of us, and or rather me with the three, with John and Dr. V, I did over 100 LinkedIn Lives last year. My face is on LinkedIn video over 100 times. But it's only when I started, and a lot of that is showing people like how, someone like me solves that problem. But it's only when I really drill down into sort of the deeper stuff and did once a month, here's how an expert solved this problem for him or herself, or here's how, you could solve it for yourself. It was only then that the entire thing just exploded. So the event is about showing, not telling. So you become a real solution to prospects when they see how you approach that problem. Otherwise, you're just someone who says you can do something. The live events generally for the fractional executives that are in my group right now that are going to graduate, their stuff's going to happen in mid-February to early March. And those sessions are going to be between 30 and 60 minutes. My sessions tend to go about 90 minutes. Sorry. But I'm going to try to keep it at 75 today. But the point is, like, you're not trying to overwhelm them. They aren't 4-hour sessions. They aren't full day workshops kind of stuff. But, it's not an infomercial about you. Again, it's the same theme. Like, here's what you're facing. Here's how an expert looks at it. Here's what you're facing. Here's how an expert actually solves it. This is the live event. Right? It's not about how you solve it. It's about how an expert solves it. You're one of the experts who works on stuff like this. I see I've got a typo in here where it says group members. But for the group members, in the current group I'm in, the next one, I guess, and of course for myself, we do, not only create the content for what's going to be said and create all the slides, but also rehearse. Because you just can't show up and, go. Right? It seems it's off, it's wooden. So we rehearse with them to make sure that they're comfortable in it. I've said before about whether you're going to download it directly from LinkedIn from your live event or you're going to use Zapier to do it automatically. You must get the people who register for your events off of LinkedIn and into your email, because it's just not practical to try to communicate with a lot of people at one time using LinkedIn, and never will be. It's not the business they're in.
Well, plus, you can get thrown off a platform. You never want to build your house on rented land.
Right. There are lots of people who, there's almost no recourse, right?
Right.
You're not the customer to any social media platform. The advertisers are the customer. You're the product. Mm-hmm. You get to play in that house so long as someone else and the platform make money from you being there. That's their business model. There's nothing wrong with it as long as you understand what, where the guardrails are.
Yep.
Now, after you've done or during your live event, you have to present. You've done this at every point, actually. You've done it on your LinkedIn About section. You've done it in your PDF booklet, and you do it in your live event as well. Is you have to provide a very easy way for people to contact you, because you're in the kind of business where you're not selling something for like $19.99 on a website, right? A sale does not exist in B2B until you're someone talks to somebody on Zoom or face-to-face or on a phone call or whatever. So there has to be a meeting of some kind, ideally a very short meeting, but there has to be a meeting. So you need to make it easy for people to connect with you. And so I use Calendly. Is it the very best one? No idea. Doesn't matter. The only reason I use Calendly is because it's the 800-pound gorilla in that market. And so it's not only likely that whoever I send a Calendly link to has used a Calendly link for someone else before. So they, it's not like, what is this? But also, since Calendly has a free tier and a lot of people, like millions, tens of millions of people, have at least some kind of Calendly account, free or otherwise, then if they click on my link and they don't have a Calendly account, and you all know how this works, right? You'll see a list of little calendar with dates, and you click on a date, and on the right-hand side, it'll show you like the available time slots where you could book yourself in. If you happen to have a Calendly account, and so you sign into it when you get there, it'll only show you the time slots that work for both you and me, as opposed to just me. And so it's even better. And of course, like, Metcalfe's law and the network effect, the more people who get even the free account, the more valuable the account is for everybody.
And it reduces friction because they're familiar with it.
Exactly, right? You want to include the safety factor in that. My default is a 15-minute talk. Now, Calendly lets you put in. It's very simple. You just turn on or off. It's just a checkbox. Calendly is not complicated to use in case you've never tried it before. I have a 15-minute buffer added on by default to every 15-minute talk. So if the meeting that someone books themselves into to, it says grab 15 minutes with Dean Way, if they book that, there's a 15-minute buffer that Calendly puts in, which is just to say it will not let anyone else book themselves into the 15-minute slot right after that 15-minute slot in case my talk goes over, like the meeting goes over by a little bit. So you have all kinds of options around that. You're there to listen more than talk. I mean, you've done a lot of talking, right? You did your outreach, you did your PDF booklet, you did your live event. So at this point, they're sort of comfortable with what you do. So now it's you listening more than talking. I mean, that's basic sales, but I'm not saying you don't know that. Everyone's human enough to be reminded once in a while that you're there to listen and then answer questions. It's not a hard pitch. Again, there are no hard pitches in this process. I don't have the kind of personality that lets me do hard pitches. So it's a lot of serving and a lot of answering questions. And then finally, be ready to talk about your pricing. I mean, there's nothing worse than going through all that process and then a prospect sort of peters away because you, A, didn't follow up, or B, weren't clear enough about what it is you sell, or C, didn't want to talk about pricing until you got more of the details. You should have ballpark pricing for what it costs to work with you, and that serves you and them, right? If their idea of what someone like you should cost is so low that you would never work on it, then it's great that you told them that it costs, X times 4 of what they think X should be. On the flip side of that, and this is the way the route that I went, I have an easy entry option. So again, highly specialized kind of writer, right? All about audience attention or human attention or reader attention, and not so much about filling out 500-word blog posts about whatever. And so, it's specialized. But and a project could, if someone had a gigantic project, it could cost, quite a lot. But it almost never happens. Most of my work, like I said, it's usually very short projects. And so I have a very short option where someone can, buy in for just several $100s. This is if they were going to hire me directly. It's not about the group prospecting kind of thing. But if they just want to hire me directly to fix something or write something for them because whatever it is they have is not working and no one's paying attention to it, then there's I make every client start at the smallest option, which is just, it's under $1,000, well under $1,000. And that way they don't have to make a big commitment to me up front. And then they get to see the quality of the work. And oftentimes, most of the time, more than half the time, I can do everything I need to do in that smallest package that they buy. And that's well over, 50% of customers. And then if they want to sort of re-up, they can re-up. But do have some sort of easy option. Now, if your offering is a little more complicated, then your easy option might not be buy a small block of my attention and time in order to do X. It might be you have like a workshop, like a live workshop that they could buy into. It will help them sort of lay the groundwork for the kind of questions and things they need to be thinking about. And yet they also get to spend time with you. They might get to ask you specific questions, so you can address those with them. But also, they get to pay. You get some money coming in, and then you get basically an extended opportunity to impress that prospect while you're paid to impress the prospect, right? In case anyone needs it, there's my Calendly.
Why ZFO? Just because CFO wasn't available?
Because the very earliest, it was available. And
yeah.
I mean, if you can get something with just 2 or 3 characters, that's fantastic. Yeah. And it's because when I first signed this up, when I first signed up for Calendly, it was for a training course that I had created back then, Zoom for overachievers.
Okay. I'm just always curious.
Obviously, I don't use that or do anything with it, but the ZFO remains, because if I ever change that ZFO, none of the previous links will work.
Yeah.
So ZFO, but on the other hand, it's super short. So
yeah, I don't know. I like it. It's just like finding domain names that are 5 characters or 3 characters. They're just valuable.
Now, a question that came up and wasn't part of the last one. By the way, this is like the second last slide, I think. A question that came up is I talked about switchboard prospects. So let me talk about fractional CMOs for a second, but attorneys for a lot of businesses fall into this category, or associations, like, business associations, industry association might fall into this category. Lawyers or attorneys, accountants would fall into this category. So there are some prospects who you might get hired to do work for, but who also are connected to many other potential clients for you. And I call those switchboard clients. For me, fractional CMOs and fractional COOs tend to be switchboard clients, which is to say, I help them find clients. And then when they find clients, well, the clients need the same kind of work that I did for the CMOs. So I'm brought in to work for those clients as well. So not only are they connected to multiple clients and keep getting more throughout the year, but then basically that relationship pays off for me and for the CMO over and over and over, and even for the clients. So it's very much a win-win-win kind of thing. That's different than an influencer. You'll see from time to time someone says, yeah, you need to connect with an influencer and have them recommend it. An influencer is someone who has a very, very large group of people with whom they have very weak ties. And it's almost always one way. It's them sort of giving out stuff to other people. They don't usually get anything back from those people other than the follow. So I spend no time at all. In fact, I'm pretty positive I'm connected to or even known by any influencers, like zero influencers. But as you saw from the earlier screenshot with how many fractional CMOs I'm now connected to on LinkedIn, coming up at 800 switchboard prospects makes a big difference, right? Or as one of my earlier bosses said when I moved into sales, I wasn't very good at enterprise sales, but I did do it. And the boss had some great advice, and that's the closest dollar. When in doubt, go after the closest dollar. It might take years for you to develop any kind of relationship with an influencer, whereas you can go after switchboard prospects today and start building that out. And that's also how referral-based businesses get built, right? If your goal is to ultimately not have to keep prospecting every day, but just get referred business coming into you, that's usually through switchboard clients, right? They have a bunch of other people they're connected to. They're talking to a lot of people that you're connected to. Let's say, by the way, you should try this guy. A little bit about me. I'm not going to read this. If you go to waycreative.com, this is what you see on the main page. It's not much to it. I've been read by a lot of people. I have found Antarctica to be an uncrackable market, and therefore have never had a client in Antarctica. But on every other continent, I have paying clients, even today.
No penguin prospects?
Stupid Antarctica. I hate that place so much.
You need a research station with somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur.
Some days I hope it melts, man. And then, then I can say, well, it wasn't me. All right. And then again, just, this is sort of what we call the linger slide. So in case anyone does have any questions, you can book time with me. It's a 15-minute slot, or you can just send me an email. Or, I can't see any chat. There might not be anything in the chat. A lot of the times there's nothing in the chat. People reach out to me directly. But in case they did, that's a possibility as well. But here's the way to get to me. And so if you have any questions about this, if you have any questions about the next group and what's involved and what you'd be expected to show up with versus what, I show up with and that kind of stuff, then feel free to ask about it, because group 2 will start up, ideally soon.
Yep. And most of these, most value actually comes in the replays of live events anyway.
Oh yeah, we do way more on the replays, and then I get more questions coming from the replays than I usually do from the live events.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty standard.
All right, I managed to keep this one to just about an hour.
Cool.
I know. Do you guys have any questions before I let everyone go?
I just know that I learned a lot, and I need to implement many of these things that I've forgotten about.
Yeah, you keep asking me about stuff, and then it's like, yeah, I'm going to get to that later today. But life happens, and next thing you know, you get thrown off track.
Indeed, it does.
All right, so those are the tools that we use. Here's why we use them, how we use them, what's done for people, how it works, and I'm going to give you guys one note. And this is don't get me wrong. I understand that this is. I'd rather have this problem than the opposite problem, right? That's what everything's a problem in life. So one of the people that I wrote one of those booklets for.
Your sound's a little muffled, Dean.
You're not talking right into your mic.
one of the people that I wrote the
There you
bookings for was Chip Rice, and Chip and I last Friday, I think Friday morning, did a session so that I could Friday afternoon, so I could take care of some of the details around hosting the page form and all that kind of stuff. And I start off, and we get on the Zoom call, and he can tell immediately, like, I look different or seem different. And Chip's a super nice guy, also a guy in North Carolina. I think only the second customer I've ever had in North Carolina, where I live. And I had to explain to them that I was so tired because I had a couple hours earlier had to turn off my outbound system. Like, I could not handle any more inbounds. I could not take on any more clients. I needed a breather. I've worked every weekend for the last 5 months. And so, I told him I had to turn it off for a bit. I know that, it's stupid to turn it off. And I know that, I'm complaining about the worst thing to complain about. And since then it has been turned back on. But on average, I think when Dr. V, at the point, it had grown to the point where when we did this session on November 30th, I was acquiring a new customer every 4 business days. And now I was telling John before, you came on and we went live. Now I acquire a customer every 2.5 business days at a higher price than what I was doing with every 4 business days.
Yeah, that's a good mark of success.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have, and knock on wood, maybe it won't last forever. But I mean, normally January is not a busy month, and yet here we are.
Yeah.
So yay. Serving and serving and giving, and then showing off how an expert solves a problem, and then inviting people to get on your calendar works really well. All right, let's wrap it up.
Yep.
All right,
that's a wrap.
Thanks to everyone who attended live. Thanks to everyone who's going to watch it on the replay. You can see on the screen how to reach me if you need anything. And as always, if there's anything I can help you out with, let me know. I always enjoy chats where I get to tackle some new problem, even if it doesn't end up becoming, a client, writer kind of relationship. And if you're interested in the next group to go through as a cohort, let me know. All right. Thanks, everyone. Let me see if I can find this.